Live's MIDI tracks contain some very important similarities and differences with Live's audio tracks. We're going to take a look here at Live's MIDI tracks and the different components that make up a MIDI track and some things you can do with MIDI tracks that are very cool and very useful for creating music in Live. One of the most important differences between an audio track and a MIDI track in Live is that for a MIDI track to work, it requires that it has an instrument loaded onto the track. So I'm going to go to my Live devices, open my Instruments folder, open the Simpler Sampler device, and look inside my Keys folder. I'm going to go ahead and grab the organic organ and drop it onto an empty MIDI track. Now I've just added this Simpler device, the organic organ, onto my MIDI track, and by doing that I've activated the ARM session recording, which means that this track is now ready to receive input from my external MIDI device. In this case it's my MIDI keyboard. You can also use your computer's keyboard if you have the computer MIDI keyboard activated. Now at this point I've got a couple different choices for creating a MIDI clip. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to double click an empty clip slot and immediately create a blank MIDI clip. Now I can also start recording, but we're going to look at MIDI recording in a separate movie. Once I've created my clip, I can just use my mouse to quickly draw MIDI notes, and I can move the notes around after I've drawn them. MIDI clips work exactly like audio clips and loops. You launch them with the clip launch button, only you can't stop them in MIDI tracks with these buttons here because these are all record buttons. You have to stop them with the clip stop button here or the stop clips over here on the master track or by stopping playback. As with audio tracks, you can show and hide the different elements using these show hide buttons. The in-out section for a MIDI track is a little different from the audio track. And again, we'll look at that in the MIDI recording movie. You do have the same send functionality for effects. The mixer can be shown and hidden. And again, we'll want to keep the mixer showing because we're going to be working a lot with the mixer throughout this course. And we've got the same track delay and crossfader section functionality that we have with audio tracks. Something else I want to show you here. And this is something that you can do with audio tracks as well. You can actually drag and drop any audio loop, any AIFF, WAV, or REX file directly from an open folder on your computer onto the Live interface. And we're going to do that here with this MIDI file. And I'm just going to drop the MIDI file directly onto my MIDI track. In this case, I've just dropped a drum MIDI file onto a organ instrument, so it probably won't sound very good. But you get the general idea. Working with clips is another way to create MIDI tracks. You can select, let's say I've got a drum clip here. I'm going to drag this clip onto the clip device drop area and create a new MIDI track. And this contains my instrument and the effect. All this information is contained in the clips, and that's covered in the clips movie. Well, that's quite loud. So as you can see, I can create entire live sets using nothing but MIDI tracks, creating new performances, adding existing clips. And what we'll be doing throughout this course is creating live sets, of course, by using audio and MIDI together, which is one of the great functions of Live, that you can so seamlessly combine your audio and your MIDI recording and editing functionality. Now, as you've seen, you can create new MIDI tracks by dragging and dropping a MIDI clip onto the clip device drop area, dragging and dropping from an open folder on your hard drive, and you can also use the insert menu as you could with audio tracks, only in this case you'll want to add the Shift key, so it's Shift Command T or Shift Control T on a Windows computer, and that adds a new MIDI track. The renaming functionality is exactly the same. You can use the key command Command R, or you can control click or right click on a PC and choose rename. and hit return. And you can move tracks around in exactly the same way as you can with audio tracks. So as you can see, there's some very obvious similarities and differences between Live's audio and MIDI tracks. Now, as you can see, when I create a new instrument here, the ARM session recording button is immediately activated. And the track's ready to record using my external MIDI device. If I want to record on this track instead, I just click the ARM session recording button, and I've got access to recording on that track or on my drum track. More on MIDI recording, of course, will be covered in the MIDI recording movie that's coming up shortly.